I thought it was a shortcut. We weren't pulling into the main terminal. No signs, no lines of taxis, no rolling suitcases. Just an unlit side road that curved behind a concrete barrier leading to what looked like an old loading zone. "This isn't the terminal," I said, already reaching for my purse. The driver didn't look back. He gripped the steering wheel tighter. "Don't step out here," he said, voice low but urgent. "Please trust me." Before I could speak, he reached across and pressed the central lock. Click. The sound hit me like a slap. "Excuse me," I demanded, my voice sharper now. "Unlock the doors." Still no eye contact. He leaned forward slightly, eyes on the shadows ahead. "I need you to stay inside the car for 5 more minutes, no matter what you see." "I'm not going to hurt you." I froze, heart pounding. I scanned the dashboard for a number to call, but my phone was buried in my bag. I was alone. Boxed in. My hand moved to the handle anyway. Then came the sirens. Red and blue light flashed through the rear window. 3 police cruisers shot into view, tires screeching. They boxed in the narrow exit ahead. Officers jumped out shouting commands. That's when I saw them, 2 men darting from the bushes beside the sidewalk. One held a rag, the other something small and shiny. They didn't make it 10 feet. They were taken down hard. One object flew from a hand and skidded near the curb. A syringe! My driver finally turned to look at me. His face was pale. "If you had gotten out," he said quietly, "that would have been you." I didn't answer. I couldn't. Instead, I leaned back against the seat, clutching my purse like a life raft as the world outside spun in sirens and uniforms. And that envelope, the one I almost left on the kitchen table, suddenly felt heavier in my lap. I almost left it on the kitchen table. That morning, I'd stared at it for a long time. Just a plain manila envelope sealed with a single strip of tape. No label, no drama. Inside, copies of my husband's pension, records the last bank statements before he died, and my signature on the forms Brady had filled out for me. I didn't know why I grabbed it at the last minute. Maybe force of habit. Maybe I didn't trust myself to remember all the details if someone had questions. The call had come 3 days earlier from the retirement fund's fraud department. "We noticed some unusual activity on your account," the woman said. Calm, professional. "Funds have been withdrawn monthly for the past 6 years under a third-party management designation." I'd thought she had the wrong person. But she read off my husband's name, my address, my social security number. She was right. Brady's name wasn't mentioned, but I didn't need it to be. After my husband died, Brady had offered to take care of the paperwork. He said it gently, with one hand over mine, like it was too much for me to handle alone. I had trusted him. I'd signed what he gave me. I hadn't read everything. I should have. He offered to call the fund for me. I declined. Then he booked the taxi. "You don't need to drive all the way to the city," he said. "Just hand them the file. Let someone else do the running around. It'll be easier this way." It should have been a routine errand. One folder, a handshake, maybe a signature. But now, sitting in the locked car, surrounded by police and flashing lights, that folder felt radioactive in my lap. My fingers curled around it, holding it tight against my coat. The driver hadn't spoken since his last warning. I looked at him. "I need to know who you are," I said. He nodded once, slowly, and pulled the car away from the curb as the officers continued securing the scene. "My name's Booker," he said, "and you weren't supposed to make it to that terminal." Booker kept his eyes on the road as we pulled away from the cargo entrance. The police lights still flickering behind us like a warning I hadn't fully understood yet. He didn't speak until we merged into a quieter lane, the hum of the engine settling into something steady enough for my heartbeat to follow. "I'm not your assigned driver," he said. "I figured that out." I answered, though my voice sounded smaller than I intended. He nodded slightly. My name is Booker Reyes. I used to be an investigator, internal compliance mostly. These days I pick up part-time driving shifts to keep myself busy. Old habits die hard, though. I still monitor public memos from companies I worked with. I waited, clutching the envelope harder. Your name came up last week, he continued. It was buried in a flagged internal notice about pension irregularities. Something about an airport document transfer attached to a high-risk beneficiary review. My stomach knotted. That's me. I know, he said. When the ride request popped up attached to your address, it felt wrong. Too much of a coincidence. He tapped the steering wheel, so I intercepted it before the actual driver did. I stared at him, not sure I'd heard correctly. You stole the ride, I saved it. He corrected gently. And you. The air tightened around us. I tried to swallow, but fear sat heavy on my tongue. I used to work with your husband's firm, he went on. I knew his name. I remembered yours. Good people. The kind that shouldn't end up in the margins of someone else's mess. He glanced at me briefly. And what you were walking into today wasn't an accident. Someone's trying to clean up loose ends. My pulse jumped. Loose ends, I echoed. Meaning me. He didn't answer, not directly. Instead, he exhaled and said, I'm not a hero. I just owed someone something, and I wasn't about to stand by and watch their widow get erased. The word erased settled over me cold and final as the city lights blurred past the windshield, and the truth began pressing in from every side. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the dining table with a mug of coffee that went cold hours before, surrounded by stacks of paperwork I hadn't looked at in years. My husband's file boxes were still where I left them, tucked neatly in the coat closet, untouched since the funeral. The pension statements were there. The power of attorney forms. The death certificate. Each page had my initials in the corners, my signature at the bottom. Except now I saw them differently. The curves weren't right. My handwriting had always been sharp, deliberate. These marks were rounder, rushed, sloppy. I pulled out old birthday cards to compare. Grocery lists, even an old check stub. The more I looked, the more the truth started peeling away from the lie. The dates lined up with Brady's visits every few months after the funeral, always with a folder, always with a smile. He'd tell me, this one just needs a quick signature, and I'd oblige without reading. I was tired. I was grieving. He was family. He'd bring groceries, help clean out the garage, even offered to fix my roof one summer, though he never followed through. I thought it was kindness. Now it looked like strategy. Page by page, I saw what I had missed. Small monthly transfers, new designations, a proxy signature from someone listed only as authorized secondary. I knew it wasn't me. And I was certain it wasn't my husband. My hands shook as I placed the forged forms in a separate stack. The weight of my own trust sat like lead in my chest. Every signature was a door, and I'd handed Brady the keys one by one. By the time the sun came up, I had 3 full folders of what I couldn't ignore anymore. And I had one name I needed to see again, on property records, on bank transactions, on anything that would prove just how far this went. It started with a search I didn't know how to phrase. I typed in my full name and real estate records, then narrowed it to Arizona. I don't know what I expected, maybe a clerical error, maybe nothing. What came up made my breath catch. A single-family home in Scottsdale. 3 bedrooms. Recently renovated. Purchased in cash under my legal name 2 years ago. I clicked through the listing. Hardwood floors, a lap pool, tall cactus plants lining the driveway. Then I saw the photos attached to the Realty Review. There she was. Tiana Brady's girlfriend. Posing on the patio in sunglasses, drink in hand. Her caption read, Desert Dreams. So grateful. I clicked again. Another shot, this one inside. Her shoes on the rug. Her dog by the window. Her life unfolding in a home I didn't know I owned. I pulled the utility records. Everything water, electric, internet was under my name. The taxes, too. Not a single signature matched mine. I called Booker, voice tight. She's living in a house I supposedly bought. He came over an hour later. I handed him the printouts, my hands still shaking. He studied the documents quietly. Identity theft, he said flatly. But this is layered. This isn't some stranger pulling a fast one. This is someone who knew exactly how to stay close and invisible. I nodded. He knew I didn't check things. I trusted him. Booker leaned back in his chair. Don't confront them yet. If they tried once, they'll try again. Let's see what they do next. I wanted to scream. March down there. Drag her out by her fake gratitude. But I didn't. I sat with it. Let it settle into something colder than anger. I stared at a home I'd paid for but never seen. A life she was living on my name, on my silence. And I realized I didn't want revenge. I wanted clarity, proof. A map of every lie that had replaced every door I'd once opened for love. So I waited. And then Brady invited me to dinner. Brady's text came the next morning, cheerful and oblivious. Aunt Lynette, dinner for my birthday tonight. Just a few friends. You'll come right, I typed yes, without hesitation. Booker said it was better this way. Better to let them believe nothing had shifted under my feet. The restaurant was dim, crowded, and too warm. I spotted Brady at a long table near the back, waving me over with that same easy grin he'd worn since he was a teenager. Tiana sat beside him, dressed like someone who expected attention rather than earned it. I kissed Brady on the cheek, wished him happy birthday, and took the empty seat across from them. Conversations swirled: work, gossip, weekend plans, someone's new puppy. I kept my hands in my lap, steadying the small recording device clipped beneath my sleeve. They didn't notice me listening. Halfway through the meal, after the second round of drinks, Tiana leaned back and laughed too loudly for the story she tried to hide inside it. Your aunt's tougher than she looks, she said, nudging Brady's shoulder. That thing at the airport. So close. My fork paused in midair. Brady stiffened. Tiana? He muttered, jaw-tight eyes flicking toward me as if checking whether I'd heard. Drop it. She rolled her eyes. Relax. She's fine. Isn't that what matters? Then she smirked into her glass. Some people don't know when to stay out of the way. I took another bite of my food, slow and calm, the way I'd practiced in the mirror. I didn't look up. I didn't question. I didn't give them even a flicker of suspicion. Brady misread my silence as ignorance. Tiana misread it as weakness. Good. When I stood to leave, Brady hugged me tightly, gratitude dripping from every word. I smiled and wished him well. Outside, the night air hit me like truth. Booker waited in his car engine running. I slid into the passenger seat and handed him the recorder. He listened to the first few seconds, then nodded, once firm, satisfied. We finally had enough to begin. Brady's message arrived just after sunrise. Need help with a small errand today. Keys under the mat at the warehouse. Should only take a minute. I stared at the text until my coffee cooled. The warehouse he mentioned had belonged to my husband's company decades ago. No one had used it since the early 2000s. Brady knew that, which meant this wasn't a request, it was a lure. I slipped the phone into a kitchen drawer and left it there. Booker had warned me once they realized I wasn't as naive as they assumed they'd try something clumsy. Something rushed. Something like this. He pulled up outside 40 minutes later, an off-duty officer in the back seat. I handed Booker the spare key to the warehouse. I won't go inside, I told him. But I want to see who does. We parked a block away, hidden behind a row of supply trucks. The officer set up a small, portable camera aimed at the side door. Booker checked the time, glanced at the dusty building, and folded his arms. They'll come, he said. People who are desperate always do. Hours passed. The sun climbed. Heat shimmered off the pavement. Then a familiar car rolled into view. Brady at the wheel, Tiana beside him, her hair in a high knot, as if she were heading to brunch rather than a crime. They hurried to the door. Brady bent down, retrieved the key, and let them inside. Within minutes, the sounds began: metal scraping boxes, dragged wood splintering. Through the camera feed, I watched them tear through old storage containers like animals in a frenzy. "They think there's more money," Booker murmured. Tiana's voice echoed faintly on the audio. "There has to be a stash somewhere. People like her always hide things." Brady kicked open a final crate. Dust exploded upward. Then he froze. Inside was only one box taped neatly with a label in black marker. "You already stole enough." For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Tiana swore under her breath, and Brady slammed his fist against the wall while Booker quietly signaled the officer to start recording the rest. I sat in a beige conference room across from a federal investigator named Harris. His tie was crooked. His eyes were sharp. He didn't ask many questions. He let the evidence speak. I handed over the flash drive first. Audio from the birthday dinner. You could hear the laughter, the wine glasses clinking. Then Tiana's voice, careless and cruel. Booker had cleaned up the file, time-stamped it. It was crisp enough to make a case. Next came the photographs, grainy but clear. Brady and Tiana rummaging through the warehouse, their faces tight with panic. Booker had captured every movement from the moment they entered. Then I passed over the forged documents. Power of attorney copies, pension withdrawal forms. The signatures didn't match mine, not even close. I'd practiced my name the same way since I was 16. These were someone else's lines, pretending to be mine. Finally, the screenshots. Every transfer, every monthly deduction, every dollar that slipped away like water through my hands. They traced a clean arc from my accounts to a shell company, and from there to one of Brady's. Agent Harris didn't say much. He clicked through the files, nodding slowly. "You've built quite the file," he said. "We can work with this." 5 days later, I got the call. Tiana had been arrested at a regional airport trying to wire a final batch of funds to an offshore account in Belize. Her face had been calm until they pulled her aside. Then she cracked. Brady was brought in for questioning the next morning. His voice on the surveillance was unsteady. I had no idea he told them. She was managing everything. Tiana, in turn, blamed him. "He told me his aunt wouldn't notice," she said. "He said she was old soft. Just paperwork." The story split open like a rotten shell. Lies spilled out faster than they could clean them up. Everything they'd built on my silence now turned to dust. And while they each tried to rewrite the story to protect themselves, I listened quietly to the recordings again, just to remember who I'd been to them when they thought I wasn't watching. The house was still. No more knocks, no more texts, no more smiles I had to second guess. I sat at the same dining table where everything had started, the manila envelope in front of me. It looked smaller now, lighter, but I knew better. For weeks I hadn't touched it. Not since that morning when I nearly left it behind. I thought I already knew what was inside pension papers, closing statements. Forms I'd read a dozen times by now. But tucked behind them, folded neatly in the back, was one last file, one I hadn't remembered. It was dated 6 months before my husband died. I unfolded it carefully. The ink had held. The signatures were real. His handwriting was steady, familiar. Every line was filled in. It was all there, a full transfer of legal control of benefits, trusts, residuals directly to me. Not to a financial advisor, not to Brady, just me. He'd written in the margin, barely visible, "Let her decide when she's ready." I don't know why he hadn't filed it. Maybe he thought he had more time. Maybe he'd meant to talk me through it. Maybe he believed, like I did for too long, that family would always protect you if you protected them. I ran my hand over the paper like it might speak to me. All this time, the power had been mine. I'd just handed it away too easily. I placed the file in a clean folder, sealed it, and walked it into the small, fireproof safe in my closet. I tucked a handwritten note beside it, one I'd written on a sleepless night when things still felt jagged. Not everything broken needs to be thrown away. Some things you repair yourself. I shut the safe. The next morning, I made 2 calls, one to the bank and one to a small legal nonprofit that worked with women who'd been financially exploited by family. I didn't tell them everything, just enough to explain why I wanted to help. Then I packed a small bag. Because this time, the ride I was taking wouldn't end in fear. Weeks passed, no headlines, no court appearances, just paperwork investigators' quiet settlements. Brady's name disappeared from accounts he once controlled. Tiana's face vanished from listings and lease agreements. Whatever lives they had built on the illusion of my absence unraveled without ceremony. And then one morning, I booked a ride. Booker's name appeared on the screen. I smiled. When he pulled up, the air was warm, the day soft around the edges. He opened the passenger door like always, but this time I didn't hesitate. I stepped in without glancing behind me. "Downtown branch," I said. "I have a meeting." He didn't ask more. He didn't need to. The envelope on my lap wasn't a burden this time. It wasn't evidence. It was a gift, one I'd signed myself in clear handwriting that matched every curve and line I'd carried all my life. The bank manager welcomed me into her office, formal but kind. I placed the check on her desk. "I'd like this set aside for a legal aid fund," I said, quietly. "For people like me, older, maybe alone, especially when their family forgets who raised them." She looked surprised, grateful. But I didn't wait for her thanks. I signed the necessary forms, handed over the envelope, and stood. No speeches, no applause. Just a small act that started with my name and stayed mine. Back outside, Booker leaned against the car, arms folded. He gave me a nod as I approached, not as a driver, not even as a former investigator, just as someone who understood the cost of silence and the power of reclaiming what was taken. I got in. The doors closed with a gentle click. This time I wasn't running from anything. Not a scheme, not a betrayal, not a name used without consent. This time I was moving forward. No destination in fear. No pit in my stomach. Just the road ahead and the hum of an engine ready to follow wherever I chose to go next.